Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna do a book haul. So once again, welcome back. I'm so glad you decided to click on this video. Like I said, I'm gonna do a book haul today. I just looked back at my videos and I haven't done one since September. So I have acquired a few. Between then and now, I don't fully know when some of these I got, but I did watch that just to make sure there were no overlaps. But I still happen to have a pile here of 16 books that I have acquired since then, and these are all unread. So, yeah, we'll see how this goes. I will try not to talk too much. I do want to just comment on the fact that the lighting is so good because I actually am filming during the day. I feel like a lot of times I'm like putting it off all day and then I go to do it and the sun's set. Even if it's like, 5 o'clock, the sun's setting. So I have to turn lights on in my house to have enough light. And like right now, I'm just very pleased with this. So, side note, let's just get into the video. So the first book I have is Dead Weight by Emmeline Klein. And I've had this for quite some time. This was sent to me by Knopf Books, so thank you to them. This is a nonfiction book about a woman, the author, and her struggle with anorexia and just eating disorders in general. There's a lot, I think, that's like personal to her own story of disordered eating, combined with like history of like when anorexia became recognized and when, bulimia, binge eating disorder, and orthorexia, when all these things became like recognized as diseases. It also discusses some of the ways that like body image standards are rooted in racism and the way that Americans especially are just so preoccupied with weight at all times. So I'm looking forward to reading this. It seems like it's going to be really interesting, but like kind of a heavy topic. So yeah, it's going to be one I might need to take in doses. Along the same sort of body image lines, we have The Manicurist's Daughter by Susan Liu. This is a memoir that follows a woman who is a Vietnamese immigrant whose mother dies of a botched tummy tuck, and basically how she grieves and gets on with her life while also questioning, like, why did she feel like she needed this? Why did she want this surgery to begin with? So, I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it than that. Like, her family are refugees from the Vietnam War, and they came into California in the 80s, but they, on their 5th attempt, the mother set up nail salons and all of that. And so it's just, I think that's going to be really interesting to see beauty standards, American beauty standards, from like a person who grew up in a different culture. And I don't know, it just sounds really good, and I'm looking forward to reading it. And thank you to Celadon Books for sending me this copy. The next book is The Favorites by Rosemary Hennigan. This is a book I got from the Aardvark book box. So this is a sort of a revenge story. I can't really tell if it's going to be more of a thriller or like a drama, but it follows a woman who goes kind of like undercover, is a weird word to use, but like her sister was murdered a few years prior, and this woman, Jessie, is convinced that this professor at this college was the one to do it because Jessie found these emails from the two of them, and they had like this secret student-teacher relationship. So Jessie enrolls in his class, but then instead of like taking him down from the inside, I think she starts to get involved with him, and there goes the story. So I feel like this is going to be really interesting. I mean, it's weird to say I like books with a student-teacher relationship because, like, I don't in, like, a romance way, but I do find them fascinating, and, like, it's one of those things that, like, I feel so strongly about that, like, when I see the person in the position of power, like, get taken down, it's like, I just feel so strong about that. So that's, like, kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm looking forward to reading this one too. Next is a book that I'm actually currently reading, and that is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This was also sent to me by Celadon Books. So this is, you can see, not very far at all. But this is about a woman whose best friend died like 5 years earlier, and a lot of people suspected that she was the one to do it. And she's kind of been ostracized from her hometown, and she lives in LA now. And there's a true crime podcast that starts running, focusing on this case. And she was never arrested because they didn't have enough evidence, but everyone thinks she did it. And so once this podcast kind of gets out there, a lot more people like in her like new life are seeing this and are like, oh my gosh, she gets fired from her job. And then her grandma invites her to come back home for her birthday party. And she is like the only family member that the main character is in contact with. So she's like, fine, I'll go because I just got fired anyways. And that's as far as I got. I think the premise in general is like, it doesn't matter what other people think because you can't really control that. Like, there's only 3 lines on the back that like give it any sort of synopsis, but they are, what if you thought you murdered your best friend? And if everyone else thought so too? And what if the truth doesn't matter? So, it's good so far. We'll see how it goes. Next is Familia by Lauren E. Rico. And this was an add-on for Book of the Month. Look at that cover. Oh, it's so pretty. I just love it. It reminds me of the cover of Shark Heart. This, I don't even really remember what it's about. It just sounded good. Oh, it's about this woman who is a fact checker, and she takes a genealogy test for an article that she's writing. She finds out that she has a sister, except she's positive that she doesn't. She just knows it. The sister, on the other hand, has been searching for her baby sister who was kidnapped, and then I think they're gonna like communicate and like sort it out. So this just sounded really good to me. You know, I love a sister relationship, and it looked like really pretty cover, which also helps. So that is gonna be a good one. I need to hurry this up because I'm already at 10 minutes and I still have a lot to go. So next one, Interesting Facts About Space. This was my Book of the Month pick for January. This one gives me vibes of like Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, or just kind of one of those like slice of life type books. It's about a woman named Enid who is obsessed with space and black holes and all of that. And she loves true crime podcasts. She's like sort of trying to date, but has her first romantic entanglement and starts to get paranoid that someone's following her. I don't know how all those things exactly come together, but I don't know. I like books about kind of like different kinds of people, like weird, you could say, but just a little bit like quirky and maybe socially awkward, and that like, but is sure of themselves, like, you know, she knows she loves space. So we'll see. I am looking forward to it. It sounded definitely the best of the books that were offered for Book of the Month in January. Although I think there was a couple that I just had already read or something. It doesn't matter. So yeah, that looks pretty good. The next one is another that's just like the cover. Yes, please. This is called Here in Avalon by Tara Isabella Burton. This is a book that I was sent by Simon & Schuster. So thank you to them for this book. And this has a little tiny quick summary at the top. So, a modern-day fairy tale about 2 sisters who fall under the spell of an underworld cabaret troupe that might be a dangerous cult, but one that makes the materialistic world left in its wake feel like a sinister cult itself. So this seems definitely social commentary-ish, and I also love any books that are set in like a theatrical setting, and a cult. Like, this was made for me, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it. The next book is Charlie Hustle by Keith O'Brien. This is all about Pete Rose. It's essentially a biography, but in addition to interviews with Pete Rose, it has like FBI transcripts, court records, press coverage, and so that's going to be really exciting. If you are a baseball fan like I am, I feel like this is going to be a great read. This was sent to me by Pantheon, so thank you to them. I am really looking forward to this. Pete Rose is such an interesting character in the world of baseball and just in general, and people have like really polarizing and strong opinions on him. So I am, you know, knowledgeable about him, but I'm looking forward to becoming an expert after I read this book. The next book is The Night of the Storm by Nishita Parekh. And this was sent to me by Dutton Books, so thank you to them for this. So this is like a family that's kind of not estranged, but they don't live together. And they're preparing for Hurricane Harvey. They all kind of go to one person's house to like hunker down and get ready for the storm. And they're kind of all like bickering with each other. Things are coming to a head, I think, a little bit. And then somebody ends up dead. So then it's like, wait, who is it? It's like a whodunit kind of vibe, I think. I mean, yeah, we've read books like this before, but like, I'm always willing to give one another shot of a, you know, a whodunit type, what are they called? Locked room mystery. So yeah, the next one is Last Acts by Alexander Sammartino. This was sent to me by Scribner Books, so thank you to them. This seems like a funny, quirky little story, like definitely like literary fiction in the vein of Melissa Broder or Kevin Wilson, just like quirky kind of books, kind of stories. This is about a man who is estranged from his son. His name is David, and he owns a gun shop, which is failing spectacularly. His son, who he hasn't spoken to in a couple years, has an overdose and ends up in the hospital. So David goes to get him and pick him up and decides that they can revive the gun shop because they can use his accident, his overdose, as like marketing material to make a commercial. So obviously stuff's gonna happen. Maybe that does not all go the way they want it to. And I mean, this is a pretty like short little book. It seems like a good one. It seems interesting, and you know, I'm certainly no fan of guns, but I still think this could be a pretty interesting read because I actually started reading the couple pages of this the other day, and it was just like not the vibe at the moment that I wanted. But I liked the writing. I thought it was a pretty interesting plot so far, so I'm excited to get to this one. The next one is What We Kept to Ourselves by Nancy Juyeon Kim. This I've had for a while. I also did get sent to this by Atria Books, so thank you to them. This is a dual timeline. One timeline is 1977, where a woman named Sunny, who is pregnant with a kind of deadbeat husband, moves to Los Angeles, and it's nothing like she expected. It's not what she wanted, and she ends up having like some connection with someone at a bus stop, and then something happens from there. And then in 1999, the Kim family is struggling to move on after Sunny had disappeared a year earlier. The family is kind of fractured, and then they find a dead body in their backyard. So this is actually sounds amazing, and I've had this on my shelf for a little bit, and I haven't even really picked it up to look at it much, so I feel like I want to get to this soon. That sounds really good. Next is The Paleontologist by Luke Dumas. This was sent to me by Atria Books. Thank you to them. And this is one that I've also had for a little while and haven't yet gotten into. It is about a paleontologist who has left his hometown in Pennsylvania and never really planned to return. He has some like demons there. He got a job at the Hawthorne Museum of Natural History, and his 6-year-old sister was abducted from there when he was a boy, and he's obviously felt such guilt ever since because I guess that she was never found. He just ends up going back there like wanting to maybe find answers after a breakup and just doing some soul searching. But once he gets back to this museum in his hometown, he starts to like hear things and see things, and he's like, is he losing his mind? What's going on? So I think it sounds cool. And then there's also something about dinosaurs, so sounds like a good book to me. Next is The Evangelicals by Sarah McCammon. This was sent to me by St. Martin's Press. Thank you to them. This is about loving, living, and leaving the white evangelical church. And I just like kind of love books like this that give you an inside perspective of something that fascinates me, even if I'm not a fan of it. It is definitely a fascination with these white evangelicals. It's also really interesting to read from a perspective of someone who was raised in a certain way and has completely rejected those beliefs, because I can't imagine how difficult that is to basically give up your whole family because you know what they believe is not what you believe. And you know, anyways, it sounds like a book that's going to really be fascinating to read. Next is Tomb Sweeping by Alexandra Chang. This was my book of the month pick for December. This is a book of short stories. They all have something to do with, I think, Asian immigrants to the United States. Yes, well, oh no, just kidding. It's set across the United States and Asia. These stories sound cool. A woman known only to her neighbors as the Asian recycling lady collects bottles from the streets she calls home. An unfulfilled housewife in Shanghai finds a secret outlet for her ambitions in an undercover gambling den. Two strangers become something more through the bond of mistaken identity. I enjoy short stories. Hopefully they can be so hit or miss with, like, does it feel like a complete story? Do I feel left hanging by the ending? And so, I don't know, sometimes it can be a little timid going into them, just wanting to have such high expectations. But I feel like I've never read anything by this author, so I am definitely wanting to give it a chance. And also, I love this cover too. Like, the colors, so pretty. Next is Like It Never Happened by Jeff Hoffman. I read a book by this author, like one of the very first books that I ever like reviewed when I started to like get into Bookstagram, and it was by this author and I loved it. It's called Other People's Children. If you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. So this one is about, by the way, this was sent to me by the author, so thank you, Jeff Hoffman, for this copy. I'm really looking forward to reading this. This follows four friends who did something really, really bad 30 years earlier. They keep it all away. It's like one of these, like, we can't tell anyone until we die or whatever. And so then one of the friends dies and they all kind of reunite at the funeral. They can also tell that the one who died's widow knows everything and also that she's a reporter. So it seems like this is going to be a situation of blackmail where essentially the guy that died drove his motorcycle over a cliff after a heroin addiction. And so she's like, you guys were responsible for what drove him to become an addict, so I'm going to torture you, essentially. And she starts blackmailing them and see what happens. But definitely a unique twist on, like, we did this terrible thing and now we have to face the consequences of our actions. Like, it just sounds like a little different. You don't often see that, like, with a revenge story from someone that wasn't even involved. And yeah, I think this will be really good. We finally made it to the last book, and that is Family by Lori Frankel. This was sent to me by Henry Holt Books, so thank you to them. This is a book, so first of all, Lori Frankel is a really interesting author. I have read one book by her, 123, I think it was 2 years ago, and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. This is a book that I'm a little more wary of getting into. It is a lot about adoption. It's about a woman who became an actress and she's doing a movie about adoption, but she ends up telling the journalist that it's a bad movie. Like so many movies about adoption, it tells only one story, a tragic one. India has 2 adopted children and knows there's so much more to her own family than tragedy. Soon she's at the center of a media storm, battling accusations from the press and paparazzi, from protesters on the right and advocates on the left. Her daughter, Fig, knows they need help, and who better to call for help than family? Because India's not just an adoptive mom. So I know that the author also has adopted kids, and after some like conversations and also reading a book that I've talked about and I will talk about later when I do my wrap up, Relinquish by Gretchen Sisson, I really have a hard time viewing adoption in any other way. And contrary to what seems to be the entire plot of this book, I feel like adoption is only ever shown as like a beautiful thing that creates families. So I have put off reading this, and I kind of want to see until more reviews come in for it, until I decide whether or not I want to read it, just because of my personal beliefs surrounding adoption and like whether or not this book will just drive me insane. So do with that what you will. I mean, I can certainly recommend Lori Frankel for her creative storytelling and her really, really nice writing. So if that's not a subject that has an impact on you, that you feel a certain way about, maybe pick this up. Okay, we did it. We made it through all of these books, and I have to say, I need to really put a kibosh on getting anything new, because I am actually really looking forward to like all of those except maybe the last one, like I just said. So yeah, I've got some reading to do and I need to stop getting new ones. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, I would love it if you would. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.